Well, I'm just looking back at the cataract operation I had yesterday, early morning yesterday. It's the second one, so it's my last. I've only got two eyes. And you look a bit weird, you feel a bit weird. It certainly wasn't an easy day for me. After my first one, I think I was fairly confident about having it done. You know what's going to happen, get through it, and there's a good result at the end of it. It didn't quite work out like that. The operation itself I actually found quite painful. You don't feel any cutting or anything, but there are two things that happened during it which I found harder to take this time than I did the first time. The first is that during it, cold water is flushed into your eye, presumably to clear any debris or to keep it clean or whatever. But you really feel it. You've got this very bright light shining at your eyes. You've got to keep them open to do it, and there's this huge flushing of very cold water that just seems to really have quite a big effect on you because you're kind of rather sensitive to things while this is going on. That's one thing. The other was this feeling of my eyeball being really pushed. It wasn't like a totally painful thing, and I don't want to exaggerate it, but it was really quite hard. And at the end of it, I felt kind of mentally exhausted. Immediately after the operation, you go into this area where they sit you down for a bit. They think it's totally normal. Any problem? Well, everybody just gets over it. Everybody's very stoical, very confident about the whole thing. But also, I didn't feel the same level of compassion amongst the people who were there with me. A bit busy talking about themselves, the fact that they haven't been given the holiday rota that they wanted. They were going to Weight Watchers and weren't losing enough weight and doesn't seem to be working well, and what should they have for dinner? Which is fair enough. Everybody's entitled to talk like that. But I was just wanting somebody to come along and say, how are you? How's it going? Well, there wasn't any of that. But because you've got this anaesthetic in your eye, you sort of feel, well, that's okay. So I had a cup of coffee and I went back out I'd texted that I was out earlier than I expected. I went to wait, and then the waiting room was very, very full, and I just didn't really want to be there any longer. So it was a lovely day outside. So I went out into the area outside the hospital that is Optegra in Manchester. So I went and sat on a wall nearby to where she'd be coming, and she was longer than I thought. And it took me back to why do I not like having to wait for somebody who's doing a good thing and coming to collect me, and yet in my head was late. It took me back to the time when I was first in hospital when I was 5, 6, having my tonsils out, and that kind of had a big effect on me as well. The really good thing was I remember being wheeled towards the operating theatre, the dark green walls of Park Hospital, where the NHS was founded, to have them out, and the nurse by the side of the stretcher that I was being wheeled into, all of a sudden just put her hand on my forehead, and all the anxiety and all the feeling of aloneness and a bit being scared seemed to just evaporate and left me with a feeling of quite calm. And I've never forgotten that moment. But it's also, at the same time, when I was being waited to be collected by my parents, one of the nurses was reading noddy stories to us, Enid Blyton. And I was listening to this, and then one by one, all the parents came and picked up their kids, and I was the last one in the ward. Eventually my mum and dad came. They were great, and that was fine. But I felt so alone at that point. And it's made me ever since realise that people not coming for me when they really need them, it's me in the same place. Anyway, she came, and we went home, and that was fine. And I was fine for a while, and then the anaesthetic in my eye wore out, and the pain in the eye was not dreadful, but just hard to cope with. And I wasn't getting over it in the same kind of way that I did the first time, but I just needed to lay down on the sofa, and it got worse and worse for a while, and I thought, oh dear. And then I desperately wanted to rub my cataract eye, and I couldn't do. I had to keep my shield on. And something's itching and you can't get to it, and So eventually I decided I put in the first of the drops, cleaning my eye with a sterilised wipe, and I put a drop in, put the shield back on, felt I couldn't eat anything, felt very sorry for myself, and then all of a sudden it just lifted and I felt okay again. And that's a wonderful feeling, and that's continued. I've had a good night's sleep. I got up really early, before 5 o'clock. This is why I'm talking now. But I feel so much better about it. But for all those who are having cataracts done, I hope yours go well. It might be a good experience or a bad experience or somewhere in between. But for most of you, for the vast majority, you'll just get over it and say, what's the fuss about? Well, on the scale of things, it's not one of the most painful things to happen. It doesn't last very long. That's a really good thing about it. The operation only lasts less than 15 minutes. But it is a big experience, and feel entitled to feel a bit down about it, or feel that you're iller than you thought you would be, or it was more painful than you thought. All of that's fine, because you'll get out of it, and hopefully all will be well.